System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Thursday, July 23rd. I am Amin TMK alongside Amoja, Little Tanky Sumler. Amoja getting hydrated, which is good. Hydration is so important. Mick Jenkins would be so proud. How are you doing?
There it is. Telling the truth is thirsty work, man. It's thirsty. I'm thirsty for the fucking truth.
Yes, that's why we're here, man.
There it is.
You want to talk about, unfortunately, man, we're not in peace times anymore. It's the time of war.
There's been
over,
so
man.
much peacetime in America. Well, I guess we ran out.
We ran out of the peacetime, dude. We used it all up. So we know that Iran has been striking U.S. military targets in ally countries. And we know that the United States has been hitting Iran's civilian infrastructure, and it's been this back and forth. Okay, but here's the thing. We're getting now confirmed reports of fatalities, confirmed 18 deaths so far across Jordan, Kuwait, and Iraq. Yesterday, let's take a gander here. Satellite footage.
Does that look like 18 fucking deaths, man? What? That's just the shit I'm talking about. So let's say these are barracks, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. It's almost 10 barracks. And of those 10, 7 have sustained major damage. Obliteration.
They look like
four are obliterated.
They're a dark spot on the ground.
Like, this is what I'm talking about, man. They want to go out and do these wars. You know, the Secretary of War wants to go out and be Big Dick Willie. Oh, we do whatever we want, and there's nothing they can do about it. This looks like they're doing something about it. You know, it looks like they could do something. This looks like combat readiness. You know what I'm saying? That was the next new lie, right? He's like, I never said we got rid of all the missiles, which you fucking did, by the way. You did. You said you removed the missile threat. You obliterated their nuclear centrifuges. That's what this shit y'all said. You said you took away their combat readiness. You're able to hit somebody in other countries, you know, in under 30 minutes with lethality. I think that's combat readiness. I think it's better combat readiness than most of the countries in the world would be able to accomplish. Certainly able to accomplish after a sustained military campaign that they were the other side of, coming from the United States of America. No, this looks like combat readiness. And It's just impossible to believe this number of 18.
Yeah, satellite footage revealing a direct Iranian hit on U.S. soldier housing in Kuwait.
This, by the way, is why they want to get rid of Mint Press. You know, you're not going to see this shit on ABC News. You know, and for those of y'all that's, you know, listening on airwaves, I apologize. But what we have here is a fantastic photo provided by Mint Press. They have bought the satellite images of the Al Salim base. And in there, it's clear this base, which clearly appears to be the housing facilities, has suffered incredible damage. Cataclysmic damage. Some of these buildings just don't exist anymore.
They don't even look like they're on the map. And they look pristine white on the before. Pristine white roofs, everything looking completely new and shiny. And then on the left, you have this massive impact zone where there is no barracks at all. And even the surrounding barracks look damaged. So again, like I'm only saying what they're saying.
Just be a grown up and tell us the truth.
We know that that's far more than what they're saying, because again, the appetite for U.S. casualties is very low. And, you know, and you've been seeing it. You're mentioning with Pete Hegseth, because he was doing the hearing yesterday or 2 days ago. Which was stopped, by the way, by Palestinian protesters. And everybody took their little pound of flesh, because everything Pete Hegseth has said about this war is a absolute blatant, obvious lie. And now we're looking at a situation where we have all the senators and representatives in there going, you said you obliterated the whole thing and they had no capabilities, but it shows there's a lot of capability.
Looks like they got capabilities, huh? Yeah, no, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. And again, right? Wars are violent. People die in wars. If you have a righteous war that you've sold to the American people, and let's be honest, it don't take much. Most Americans, no matter how they try to play it now, most Americans were totally okay with George Bush going into Iraq and destroying that culture. There were a million reasons people were okay with it, but everyone was okay at the beginning. The thing that changed people was not like, oh, this is wrong, or these are false pretenses. What changed it was Americans dying in the counterinsurgency that followed after the destruction of the Ba'athist parties, after the elimination of Saddam Hussein. So again, those of y'all just listening, please, in the comments with your stars, tell the truth. But tell the truth and throw up your stars. Tell the truth. We grown. If you're going to go to war and people are going to die, don't do this Israeli shit. Don't do this Ukrainian shit. Be a grown-up. Say we went to war. We're trying to stop them from getting these dangerous weapons. Then apparently it's okay now with Saddam. The Saudi Arabians. As you stated in the last podcast, the Americans have been now even more forthcoming, and now it's undeniable that they're offering enrichment policy to the Saudis. The guys that were directly involved with 9/11, along with certain Israelis, right? The guys that we know had connections to 9/11 are now given the right to enrich uranium and nuclear material, which, by the way, doesn't that seem like the kind of thing the United Nations should decide? Like, we'll have a ruling, if anything, right? Although ultimately sovereignty is sovereignty. And I feel like no country has the right to tell any country what they can and cannot develop as far as their technologies go. But I think it's a little bit disingenuous to the American citizen to have an excuse as to why we're okay with Saudi Arabians enriching nuclear fissile and fusion type materials when we're at war right now with Iran, who has not threatened actual war with the United States. But as consistently stated, if attacked, they will defend themselves. And this is what we're watching.
From one point to the next, we haven't talked about him. We haven't mentioned this guy, man. He's the new Prime Minister of the UK. Prime Minister Burnham. Yes, been in office now just a few days, 3 days, 2 days. I can't know. It's less than a week. And he approved the use of UK bases for strikes on news. How about this? From GC. Iran's IRGC directly threatens to target UK soil, saying any base used to attack Iranian soil is a legitimate target. Per Tasnim, the IRGC says the U.S. turned to B-1 Lancer aircraft flying from Fairford Air Base in England yesterday to strike Iran after its cruise missile reserves launched from ships in the Indian Ocean were completely depleted. The IRGC accuses the UK of having a historic role and the most involvement in the recent attacks by the U.S. against Iran and warns it not to, quote, further burden its record. The UK jumping in here. Obviously, we can talk a little bit about Ukraine later, but UK, of course, puffing their chest out here for the war in Russia as well. So I just want to get your kind of thoughts on this, man, and maybe where you see like the UK and your thoughts maybe on the new prime minister, because we haven't spoken about him quite.
Oh, the new prime minister. So this guy, right? I was reading this wonderful article earlier on PBS, and it was why Britain is getting a new prime minister without a general election, right? Because that's what happens in a democracy, right? And it's like, well, you don't understand. Keir Starmer was incredibly unpopular, but because Labour has the most seats in Parliament, this was the person that everybody agreed would be the best decision. So the lawmakers decide, right? It seems like if you're getting rid of your prime minister, seems like that's the kind of thing where automatically this should have to go back to the people. The people should have to vote who's going to be the new prime minister. But of course, right, in the parliamentarian systems, it's like, well, you voted for the representatives. We're going to make all the big boy decisions from here on out. You get to pick the representatives, and the representatives pick the people that then, by the way, also have to be submitted to the king, because let's not act like the King of Windsor doesn't have any say. The King of Windsor has to approve a prime minister. For all the people that are like, oh, it's just a ceremonial title. The king can also dismiss, right, the prime minister and call for new elections. So all of these things have happened. The bottom line is
Some kings.
some kings,
No,
right?
none.
Some kings.
None is good,
Some
but how
kings.
about some, including the King of England, which
Yeah,
is
he's
the exact person
historically.
that the no kings thing should have been about. Anyway, whatever.
There it is.
It's all foolish.
Keir Starmer had been in trouble in Britain for quite some time. He was an incredibly unpopular prime minister, but which, by the way, is the trend in Europe right now. Macron is incredibly unpopular. Merz, who is the chancellor of Germany, incredibly unpopular. Right? None of these guys have a positive PR number. Like all of the approval rating. Yeah, there we are. Words. They're dumb. Right? The highest I believe right now is Merz, and he's like 21. Like, so all of these, and these are things that go up and down, but they never go up that much, but they do continue to go down. So instead of dealing with the fact that Keir Starmer was incredibly unpopular, right, they used him to move through that digital advocacy stuff, which is essentially no more anonymity in the internet under the guise of, oh, we're going to protect the kids. Again, a bill that was incredibly unpopular with the British people and also the Americans, pretty much everybody. Nobody wants to know that the government is watching, and not just the government and everybody the government deems is okay is watching every single thing you do on the internet, whether we're talking about shopping purchases or just, who you're streaming, right? It doesn't matter that you're not doing things illegal. People have an inherent right to privacy, and as far a statement as it goes with thinking that, okay, well, for national security, maybe, we can give up a little bit of that for the government. That's not the way it is at all. You're giving it all up, and not just to the government. You're giving it all up to Amazon. You're giving it up to Palantir. You're giving it up to Cloud. You're giving it up to Anthropic. You're giving it up to Apple, right? All of these companies know everything about you. They know your medical history, right? What was that thing just a couple of weeks ago where Microsoft fired all of the people because the AI went through their medical records and figured out who is the most likely to get cancer? So just fired all these people so that they wouldn't have to pay for it, right? These are things that we're talking about. This is the kind of legislation, okay, that Keir Starmer helped push through. Now, he had been unpopular for a while. He had been beleaguered. Many of the people in his cabinet had been closely associated with the Epstein Island scandal. He was able to wither through that. Apparently, it seems like the thing, and this is what brings us to your question, the thing that was a bridge too far is because, again, the British people are overwhelmingly against this Iranian war, right? Everybody around the world is against this war, right? Except for the political class. And so, because the British people were so against this, Keir Starmer publicly had to tell Trump, you can't use British air bases to conduct your strikes. Now, privately, he still did it. You could look at the footage of the B-1 bombers, which are supersonic, long-range, heavy bombers, nuclear-capable bombers that were leaving from the British Air Force bases, right, and flying to Iran and bombing and returning. They were flying from Diego Garcia, right, which is this island that shouldn't even belong to the West at all. It's an Asian island. There is an indigenous people. For all of you land back motherfuckers out there, there's an indigenous group of people that have historically been trying to become an autonomous nation that doesn't want to be tied to America, doesn't want to be tied to anyone. They want to be their own nation, and they've never been allowed to have that independence because they're claimed as a protection. They're claimed as under the Commonwealth, right? This is a property of the king. There that guy goes again, right? That's what it means to be a member of the British Commonwealth. You are the Commonwealth of the king. And because the king doesn't choose to allow them their autonomy, they remain a British protectorate, right? So this is a base where the British have military assets, the Americans have military assets, and this place is conceivably right at about the perceived limits of what Iranian missile tech can hit. No one knows for sure. When the war first popped off, there were a couple of mystery strikes that hit Diego Garcia. And let's be honest, there were strong implications that those missiles came from a bad faith actor. It wasn't the Americans and it wasn't the Iranians. Who else could have some context and capability to perhaps bring NATO forces in that would instantly want to have war with Iran, right? So I'll let you guys put on your thinking caps and figure out who could have fired on it. But Iran has always reserved the right to, right? Though they themselves have up until this point not claimed to ever have attempted to hit it. So what they're saying is, you blaze, we blaze. You let your friends shoot at me from your house, we'll shoot your fucking house up. Sounds like what they're saying to me.
And you're facing casualties, you're facing backlash here. I know they talk about the midterms. Not that really that's something I'm too worried about, but there's a lot of political pressure here, and we're going to see kind of how it turns out. I do want to kind of pivot to Ukraine because we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Now, or actually last episode. So Ukraine has a new commander in chief. We talked about this. We thought we were going to be able to maintain Alaska. It was going to be a big battle. Well, that did not last. So his name is Mikhail. I'm not going to get this right. Mikhail Drapati. And he is infamous, I should say, for commanding the battalion that was running over civilians in Mariupol. And this is, again, back during those protests for the military coup that happened in Ukraine. So you can already see that there is, I'm not going to play this because it's actually, I looked at it a little earlier and I'm like, nah, it's
savage.
It's pretty intense.
It's savage as fuck, actually.
On YouTube, if you want to see it, we'll have it up soon on Inner City Left. But irregardless, it shows, again, just a new low, a new bottom for the Ukrainians and what they're willing to do. And we talked about Wildberries. Wildberries was the Amazon-like warehouse, the Russia's Amazon, and their warehouse was hit. 9 people killed. Civilian infrastructure being hit. You see the gang squad, the Hop Out boys, grabbing every, 19 to 60-year-old and dragging them to the front lines with, dogs grabbing, biting, their ankles, and moms punching them in the face. You have the incredible grift. Most of the luxury vehicles, Rolls Royces and Lamborghinis and Bentleys, go to these Ukrainian generals and things like that. We talked about the Klitschko, the Mayor Klitschko, who's a huge part in the sex trafficking world. Ukraine is just, they are just really at the bottom of the barrel in terms of humanity in a lot of ways. And it's getting worse. This guy literally kills his own citizens with no regard. No regard for human life.
They told you was bad about Saddam Hussein? This dude was in an APV running over not Russians, he was running over Ukrainians. You know what I'm saying? Now he assumed that these Ukrainians had Russian sympathies, but that's a hell of a thing, right?
If you have Russian sympathies, then and you're Ukrainian, that's a position that you're allowed to have. Wanting to be
wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
You're
but that's
wrong.
the problem. This thing when you talk about democracy and we talk about Zelensky not having an election and the aspect of Lindsey Graham's sister just hopping right on in.
I actually think she'll stay.
You know, she'll stay.
She'll stay.
You got kings in freaking Saudi Arabia getting nuclear weapons, and we're talking about democracy, man. It's just ridiculous. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I think it's a fascinating point, right? I mean, the thing you got to remember is this, right? What did we talk about? We didn't think anything would happen to Sersky so fast because of several reasons. One, a huge battle is impending. Those forces are still there, by the way, just kind of parked in the region, hoping the Russians don't like move on their huge forces. And they're every day they're huge, what do they call fab bombs that are landing on these positions, right? So it's just whittling down this force before they can even meet combat, because you don't take the field like that anymore, man. It's just not World War II, man. You don't put 50,000 fucking soldiers out in the field. They'll all die horribly and fast. They'll fight very bravely and die very quickly. This is what will happen if you array forces like that, and that's where they were. Maybe that's the reason why Sersky got fired, but I think it had been going on for a long time. And it would be too logical to think like, oh, no, they see that he's lost it. No, he got fired for the same reason Fedorov got fired. They were both incredibly popular people that had very powerful constituencies behind them, right? Now, who's there with the puppet strings behind all of it? Zelensky. Zelensky's and Fedorov's here. You know, you can't trust Sersky. You know, he wants to take all the credit for what's happening on the battlefield. It was your idea to strike Russia with the drones, right? It was your idea. Look at how successful it's been. You know, he goes to Sersky, you know, hey man, this dude, you know, he out here thinking his little couple of strikes in Russia is what's changed the battlefield. It's really you. You're the real commander out there. You're leading the forces. You're the one putting your ass on the line. These guys go at each other. Both of these incredibly popular, let's be honest, rivals for Zelensky are now gone. And who's there now? A dude who is not popular at all. He is even less popular than the guy that they wanted to give Fedorov's position to. The guy, and by the way, I think that guy will still end up getting Fedorov's position. You know, it's just a matter of time. But this dude is the dude. I mean, he's a mad dog. You know, and look, I get it, they're in a death, but that in and of itself, right? More than any other thing we could try to tell you at Inner City Left. So you fired your commander-in-chief on the battlefield, Sersky. You fired your defense minister, Fedorov. But we supposed to believe that y'all is winning? These are not the actions of a team that's doing good. Got rid of the head coach and you got rid of the GM? These are not the actions of a team that's doing good.
So there was some meetings that happened today. It was 2 meetings, okay? One that happened in Ukraine and one that happened in Moscow. So the one that happened in Ukraine was between President Volodymyr Zelensky and Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. Again, these 2 unelected officials that have absolutely nothing to do with some sort of expertise in ending the war between
that the
Russia
Iranians
and Ukraine.
outed, by the way, of making a fortune and all the insider trading they're doing, flying back and forth.
Yeah, well, I mean, the grift continues. I mean, let's not forget these are the same, you know, guys that wanted to turn Gaza into a resort. So they're there, all right. But also, and this is the bigger news, Marco Rubio met with Dmitry Medvedev. I'm sorry, not Dmitry Medvedev. Who am I thinking of?
Lavrov.
Sergei Lavrov met today.
I wish Marco Rubio would have met with Medvedev. That would be news.
So here's the thing. It was a brief discussion. Didn't last too long. Reports saying around 30-minute meeting, flew all the way to Russia just to meet for 30 minutes. And, we were kind of talking about this off air a little earlier. That's not a good sign. Usually, when there's something to talk about or there's a discussion where two people agree on something, there's a lot of discourse surrounding that. But when you go in there and there's not much give or take, there ain't much to talk about. If you ever have a actual beef with a real person and you see that person, there's not a lot to talk about.
By comparison, remember, okay, less than 2 weeks ago, Putin and Trump had a conversation, and it was not cordial, but it was about 90 minutes. This was 35 minutes is the estimate. So once you get all of the formalities out of the way, the Honorable Marco Rubio, head of state, representative of the American, meets, Lavrov, foreign minister of the great Russian Federation, all that shit that takes his own time.
Chairs,
right? Once all that's done, how much time was really left in this 35-minute talk? So here's what that talk was. Yeah, Lavrov, it's kind of funny how accurate these Iranian missiles are. Seem like they hitting lots of Americans. They might have had some help. You know anything about that? Lavrov. Nah, it's crazy, man. It's probably the same motherfuckers that's giving these Ukrainians all of this wonderful targeting advice, knowing exactly where to hit in Moscow. See, it ain't really much to say. Because they're both guilty. Any American that's out there indignant at Russia and possibly China, giving any type of information about guidance to the Iranians is truly a sick person. Knowing that the Americans have been the intel, the ISR behind every legitimate strike that's happened inside Russia in probably the past 20 years, all from American intelligence, all from American satellites. That's just very rich. And see, here's the thing that the Americans are not used to. They're used to having such a technological, quantitative edge over everybody, at least a qualitative, right? They're used to a qualitative and a quantitative. Okay, so check both of those words out if you don't know what they are, right? But we're in a different place now. The Russians just last week put a new batch of these satellites they call the Rasvet. It's a constellation, and it's like Starlink. It's Russia's answer to Starlink, right? And what that allows them to do is have their own targeting where they're not relying on the American and the Western GPS signaling. They're not relying on any of those to get tracking information because Americans are the best GPS jammers of all time. Why? Because it's their technology. If you use their technology and you're trying to hit American assets, you're going to find jamming, you're going to find spoofing, right? You're going to find a lack of accuracy that then is going to play into Western conversations. Oh my God, these inaccurate missiles. Look at what they killed all these civilians, right? And that's the one thing that, ironically, the Iranians and the Russians have struggled to do. They have went out of their way to keep civilian casualties incredibly low because they understand you already, what was it, Putin that was saying this to fucker Tucker Carlson? You can't win no intel war with the Americans. You can't win a PR war. But they understand there are things you can do where the Americans don't even have to lie. If you go and blow up all these buildings, America, look at what the Russians, look at what they done us. And so even when they're doing Oreshnik strikes and they're hitting the capital city, Ukraine, they're hitting them with Kinjals and they're hitting them with Zircons, incredibly complicated, very high-tech weapons. The casualty numbers are always really low because they're not relying on American tech for accuracy. They have their own internal tech, and that's where we're at now.
Sorry, we were both muted there for a second. Okay. So this is kind of, I think, important, right? A new batch of satellites.
Incredibly important.
And if you can see this thing kind of popping off here for our podcast listeners, this is like what Tanky is talking about. This is the replacement for that Starlink situation. And Starlink is such a huge infiltrator. We know that Starlink wanted to infiltrate Iran really badly, Lebanon as well. And they're all over Ukraine. So this, again, their own technology. And it goes back to this point, too. And this is, I think, a larger point. Nuclear technology is getting close to like 80 years old, right? Like around that amount. All right. So that technology is old. Yeah, that technology is old. Places like Iran, places like Russia, places like China, okay, they have the greatest scientific minds in the world, and they have the resources and material to create these huge mega projects. And there is, like you said, America had a technological advantage that they exploited for a long time. But with the wars in Iran, with the war in Ukraine and the Donbass, you're seeing that is just not true. And this idea that America is so good militarily, they have so much, their stockpiles are dwindling. Obviously they're, who knows how much pressure they feel from the American people, but that's certainly very high. The Iran War, one of the least approved of wars ever, even worse than Vietnam. And I don't think many people know that much about Russia and Ukraine still. And I think that the United States and the West has been using that to their advantage.
It's a total proxy war. Most Americans don't know we're at war with Russia.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You still see the Ukrainian flags and stuff like that, but Ukraine is really not even a real country, man. I mean, we keep saying, I hate to say it, but it is Russia. I mean, it was Russia, pre 1993. So a lot of people that were born there were born in the Soviet Union, and they identify a lot with Russia. And when a country is right next to you, and is you guys were formerly a part of the same block, it shouldn't be this type of back and forth. But you say this all the time. Don't even get involved. Don't get involved with people's civil wars. And in a lot of ways, that's what this is. Or at least, the sort of Azov and the Banderite block of the Ukrainians that are pushing back against, and again, the United States just funded them, but there's nothing that can stop Russian technology. Same thing with China and same thing with Iran. And the United States, because of their corruption, because of their miseducation of sort of the populace, they don't have this. They don't have this in supply, and they're losing that technological race.
I would like to say that the Americans still have a quantitative edge, right? If you look at the number of Starlink satellites, and if you look at the number of reusable atmospheric satellite lifters, like what you're seeing at SpaceX, America still has a huge advantage over everybody, right? But when you're talking about what it would take to defeat the Russians, it would take exactly that, the Americans. And it would be Pyrrhic. Because again, you're talking about the largest nuclear weapon owner in the world. It's not America. Russia has almost twice as many nuclear weapons as the Americans do, and delivery systems. They even have nuclear weapon systems like the Burevestnik, which, talked about a little bit earlier in jest, right? These are nuclear powered rockets to stay in upper orbit that are forever in orbit and can be utilized at any time to rain down a strike, right? So you're talking about first strike and second strike capabilities. You're talking about continuation of state agenda in the event of catastrophic failure in the event of state, right? These are not countries you can defeat. Not like that. It would take America straight. You're not going to be able to do it with a proxy. Again, no one wants to hear this. Liberals cry and gnash their teeth every time I say, quite literally, Ukraine exists because Russia allows it to. This is the same truth about Vietnam. Vietnam existed because the Americans allowed it to. If I have weapons that end civilizations, and you don't have those weapons, you win because I let you. You win because of my restraint, right? If Russia chooses to remove the restraint, Ukraine disappears. Probably West Europe disappears.
And it looks
They have
more and more like
qualitative and a quantitative, technological, nuclear, and military capacity advantage over Ukraine and all of Western Europe.
they're fighting someone that's being supported by the United States. They're not fighting the United States. They're fighting Ukraine. They're fighting Europe. So yeah, of course, I see that's, but again, Iran, I think saying that, UK is fair game is interesting because Russia said the UK could be fair game as well. So the Western Europe, I mean, man, they really seem like they're playing with fire right now. And it just seems like, to me, almost like they want a strike to happen to sort of, I don't know, bring morale to sort of the EU and kind of puff them up again and NATO to do something. But
you talk about this in your football years a lot, right? Like the whole point of trying to draw a penalty from the ref, you provoke somebody, you provoke them, and then the other person reacts, and you go to the ref, you're like, look at what they did.
And what they did to me.
And that's what they're trying to do with their people, right? They've been telling all of their people, prepare. Oh, we're going to be attacked by Russia. Oh, Iran is dangerous. What they don't tell you is they're launching attacks into Iran from Britain. What they don't tell you is the British Secret Services, the British MI6 and other spook organizations are in the same rooms as these Ukrainians, looking over these maps, talking about, I tell you what, it looks like there's a good plot, there's a good spot here, love. And they're blowing this shit up together. You know what I'm saying?
Sound like... No, keep going. That was a good impression.
It's a little bit cockney, and those are probably not the. It's probably a little bit more of the.
It was you for a second.
No, I do say, my love. It looks like, I can't even do that lordly shit. I only know the poor people accents.
Boy, looks like a missile midas, bruv.
Yeah, right. See, that's me. I got that. But the Alexander Mercurius, I'm completely lost on that
Patty
shit.
Pimlet is very good, though. Yeah, they'll never understand.
You never fought with, I say we fought and blew up Moscow, Those are not the guys in MI6, but they exist, right? And so, like, the population has no idea, not in a real way. Whether we're talking about Boris Johnson, whether you're talking about Richie Sunak, whether you're talking about Starmer or this new poppin' J motherfucker, right? It doesn't matter. The intelligence doesn't change. And even though the British people at large have no idea their government is involved in these activities, they are. And when they inevitably get struck back, it's gonna be look at what they done. See, long have we foreseen this doom, and it will never have been. We actually have been responsible for several of the, let's be honest, terrorist attacks that are happening inside of Iran and inside of Russia.
Been warned several times. And I know we're running along here. Goes back to the "niet means niet" memo. We told you. If you do this, this is what it is. This is the real boundary that we're setting. And when you hear and see people in our comments about Russia, and they go, Russia was attacked. Yeah, it was attacked unprovoked. That is just so categorically
you mean Ukraine.
Wrong. Yeah, Ukraine.
Russia was attacked unprovoked by the West. They broke into every memorandum.
Yeah, Russia attacked unprovoked. They attacked Ukraine unprovoked. It's just so ridiculous because the coup, the treatment of the native Russian speakers in the Donbass, the Russian Orthodox Christians. I thought we cared about like religion, right? And like religious freems and stuff, and to say that it's unprovoked and
democracy. The Russians are getting ready for their what is it? Their parliamentary elections right now.
Okay.
Right. They're also in a war. Russia, I know the average American thinks that it's just Putin sitting on a lordly chair somewhere making all these decisions.
And he presses a button that says rig elections.
Right.
And every Russian is like, yeah, I'm okay with that.
But in the real world, Russia has elections, right? And those elections are coming soon. And, who knows if those elections are real? The Ukrainians. Why do you think they're doing so many attacks in Moscow and all across all across Russia, so that when you go to the ballot box in Russia, you're like, see, let's vote. These guys couldn't keep us safe. Let's vote for these other guys. But what they don't understand is the other guys are a lot less forgiving than Putin and his administration. The other guys are starting to put heat on Putin for how continuously underwhelming his responses have been. And that's, even including the upgrade in posture that we've started to see. But back to your boy Lavrov, one thing that he did say is these attacks will have a toll and our response is incoming. You don't know when it is, and it won't be a conventional response. I don't know what more you want to hear from the foreign minister. What more? When you're using that language, you're saying up to and including our response may include nuclear weapons. Leave us the fuck alone.
And maybe that should happen. Anti-war. War is the worst thing that we do. We're in a world war. I know a lot of European countries aren't being directly hit, so they don't want to consider it a world war, but this is absolutely one. And it's very dangerous. We're going to keep you guys updated. I'm going to give a shout out to our podcast listeners. You can't always see what we're talking about, but we're going to do a better job. Think you did a good job today describing the photos and stuff like that. So we appreciate you guys. Like and leave a comment if you're on Spotify or Apple. We are available, obviously, here on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, stars in the comment section to let you know that we see you and that you're here. Fables, Foibles, Other American Sins. It's right behind me, and it's available in the description. The merch store now open in the description as well. Fancy shirts. We got a protest gator you can wear on your face when you go to protest to keep your facial recognition from.
Do what you can to make it hard for the AI recognizers.
They're really good, but you can make it a little more difficult is all we're saying. And
just let it be a probability, 68% match.
Yeah, at least let your lawyer have at least some sort of plausible deniability.
This don't even look like him.
It's not him. You can dye your hair and be like, what's up like me? Wear glasses.
I also want to say this too, because it's important. We're here to give you the news. I don't root for Russia. I don't root for China. I don't root for any country. I root for humans. I root for humanity. And I call the balls and the strikes as I see them. If you see them different, hey, good job for you. Throw the link in your podcast and I'll watch that shit too. Y'all have no idea how much time we put aggregating this knowledge and trying to bring it. Okay, so that's the one thing I hate to see is people in the comments like, oh, these people is for them. We're not for nobody. We're for humanity. We're here to see a united humankind do well, be provided, advance, and grow as a culture to reach the capability of what humanity's promise looks like. Only the left can give you that.
Yeah. Now, well said. We'll end it there. Shout out to our Patreons and patreon.com/InnerCityLeft. We appreciate you guys. We love you like cook food. The channel is growing. I see us picking up subscribers. I see us, doing things. We'll be talking on Patreon, get more and more followers on our Instagram. And we appreciate those who have been with us for a while. And again, like Tanky said, we're pro-humanity. We're anti-war because we're pro-human. And, that's that. And anything else you wanted to say just to wrap it up, Tanky? Are you good? Okay. For Amoja Little Tanky Sundler, I'm Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.